Ireland could absolutely change its laws around drugs at any time. So the main thing is that there is currently a criminal law which says that it is illegal to possess drugs and there are potential criminal penalties for that. That could be removed tomorrow. And there's all sorts of other ways that you might want to regulate rightly, the way that people might obtain a drug, or public use you might want to regulate in a significant way. But specifically, the law around possession, that would be very, very easy to repeal. Now, there'd be all sorts of other stuff that needs to happen as a result of that, or in alignment with that. You would need to have big investments in prevention and healthcare services. That's fine. We can also do that too. All of these things are absolutely within our control. It's political choices, whether or not a given behavior is criminalized or whether it's regulated through some other form of law, or indeed where our investment priorities are. This can all change at any time. So one of the things we've seen in the last couple of years have been suggestions that the decriminalization of drug possession in other countries has actually caused harm. And if you look at the evidence for that, that is definitely not the case. So there have been some suggestions that the increase in cocaine or crack cocaine use in Portugal might be linked to decriminalization, but that's not what the evidence suggests, because the levels of increase in cocaine and crack cocaine use in Portugal mirror those in other European countries where those substances are still illegal. So that means you cannot attribute any rise in that type of drug to its legal status. There have also been questions around decriminalization, the impact of that in certain American states. Again, the evidence does not suggest that the social problems that are being experienced in those states, which are things like homelessness and addiction and crises in mental health services, that is not because of decriminalization. Perhaps it is the case that you need to intentionally bring in all sorts of other things in parallel with decriminalization. For example, you need public use to be regulated and prevented. That's absolutely the case. Otherwise, you will lose public support for decriminalization. You also need to take all of that money that is currently wasted on the prosecution of people for the possession of drugs, and we have thousands of those a year here in Ireland, and you have people who go to prison for those types of offenses. All of that money can be reinvested in prevention and healthcare services. There are really serious questions about whether criminal law and punishment are effective ways of regulating any type of human behavior. But when it comes to drugs, there is really very little, if any, evidence that using the criminal law and punishing people can reduce harms in society. In fact, what we know from research around the world is that criminal law and punishing people in possession of drugs or who have a drug addiction usually increases the amount of harm. The research has looked at the impact of criminalizing people who use drugs. It has looked at the impact of increasing sentencing for drug possession. And what we also have now is quite a lot of research looking at what has happened in societies where they have removed criminal penalties for drug use. And what's really interesting is that there's no obvious correlation between the legal status of the drug and the consumption of the drug. So, we have to distinguish between different types of criminal law and different forms of consumption anyway. When you're talking about criminalization, is it about criminalizing the possession of the drug, or is it about criminalizing the sale and supply? When it comes to thinking about consumption, are we thinking about problematic consumption, where there's a direct harm to society or to individuals or health? Or are we thinking about, the vast majority of consumption of things that are currently illegal in Ireland, where there isn't really a lot of harm that is caused? And so looking at places like Portugal, like Canada, now Germany is trying to change its laws. There's a growing number of intelligent governments that are moving away from the criminal law as a way of trying to respond to the harms that drug use, consumption, addiction, and sale and supply can cause.